I saw a video where it was asking Americans, would you give up Alaska for Greenland? And I said, resource-wise, that would be a good trade. Greenland has more resources than Alaska in terms of oil and minerals and even like timber and stuff. But population-wise, I don't want all the liberals of Greenland. Like, Alaska is pretty liberal, but I don't want all the liberals of Greenland voting in my country, okay? They have nothing to do with American culture. At least Alaskans are American, right? Like, Greenland is like Nordic. They have nothing to do with Anglo-Saxon American culture, right? So I said that, right? Whatever. It's YouTube. People get offended over everything. But this guy said, wow, you don't want people voting, and yet you're in a democratic republic? Are you serious? What a shining beacon of democracy you are. And the snarkiness just pissed me off. No, I'm just playing. I don't care about that. But the comment really got me thinking, like, people think, and this is true, people think America is a democracy because we just like it. So it got me thinking, like, democracy is not an American value. It's a tool that America has used to maintain its values. And it's a very good tool at that. But we don't have democracy for democracy's sake alone. Like, we're not just getting, all up in arms and all heated over democracy just for the sake of it, right? In fact, the American colonies were fine with a monarchy as long as the monarchy was not trampling on our rights. We said many times, it took many grievances against the American colonies before we finally did a revolution, right? We said, we are loyal subjects to the crown. We just want these rights. We just want these values to be protected. Please let us have this and we'll be a part of the monarchy. So you have to realize that a democracy has never been the point of America. Freedom has been the point. Freedom is a value of America, right? Freedom, individualism, capitalism, the individual needs above the collective, Christianity. Christianity is a major one. These are all values, right? Separation of church and state, you could say. These are all values. But democracy is not a value. And why do I bring this up? Am I like an anti-democracy guy? Am I going to start bringing in like a theocratic dictatorship? No. But the reason that this comment pissed me off is because he basically said, if you don't want these liberal people to vote, if you don't want to introduce millions of liberal people into the country who hate these values to vote, you're anti-democratic. Okay, sure. America's not a democracy. That's my point. Like, you can still call it anti-democratic. It's not anti-American, though. Because, again, why do we have a democracy? It is to protect these rights. And so, ergo, it would be counterintuitive to a democracy to invite people in who want to vote against these rights, correct? If the point of a democracy, in America's case, is to protect values like Christianity, individualism, then having a socialist communist who says we should all be equal and have no religion, well, that would be counterintuitive and the antithesis of an American democracy, right? Because they are voting to destroy these rights, and the point of democracy was to protect the rights. So if the democracy cannot protect the rights, then it is a bad democracy, at least on the American standard, right? If a dictatorship could protect American rights in perpetuity, we would be a dictatorship. I would support that. If it could do that, it can't. It's been proven it can't throughout history, right? If a theocracy could, it can. Then we would like it. It can't, right? If a fucking communist, socialist, whatever they say, right, could do it, then we would do it. But it can't. The only system that has worked for this long, 250 years of a continuous regime, right, is a representative republic, democratic republic, with a limited government. And this system, with these people, that's the key, right? This system, with these people, leads to these values being protected. People who support these values, voting, keeps these values in place. And there will obviously be a few people who never accept the values, but those people will always get weighed out by the people who do. That's the beauty of democracy. That is what is the point of us instilling it, as opposed to being a dictatorship like Chile or Argentina or all these other places that did a rebellion against their European monarchies and became shitholes, right? But what these retards need to understand is it's not democracy for democracy's sake. If democracy stopped being useful to protect the American way of life, we would throw it away. But it just so happens that democracy, in the way America does it, has been useful in protecting these values, right? But that doesn't mean we allow everyone to vote. Like, this is the point I'm trying to get at. Everyone should not be voting. We should 100%, to be democratic in the first place, only allow certain people to vote. Because again, what is the point of an American democracy? I'll say it for the 5th time. What is the point of an American democracy? It's to protect certain values. And so you should only allow people to vote who you can sort of like litmus test, or, it's like just by the fact that they have gotten the ability to vote, that they have these values. So that's why we have landowners, right? Because landowners are usually hardworking individuals. They don't want the government in their business, right? That's why we allowed landowners to vote, because it's a litmus test for people who subscribe to these values. And people who live in the city usually don't subscribe to these values. That's why it was landowners and not city dwellers who were allowed to vote, right? So people always say, oh, only land owning white, this is, anti-democratic. No, it was a point. I think it was actually a good system, right? Back then. Nowadays, anyone can own land and be a fucking stupid liberal, right? But back then, it made sense. Because again, what is the point of having a democracy? It's to protect values. It's not just for the sake of democracy alone. And so you want to make sure the only people who are allowed to participate in this democracy are going to have a 90% chance of subscribing to these values so that they can be maintained. We care more. If I could end this video with any sentence, any message to take away, is that America should care more about protecting values than protecting democracy. Because democracy is what protects the values. So that means that the values are more important than the tool that we use to protect them. Meaning, if we have to forego a little democracy and we knew it could work to maintain these values, again, I'm not saying do a dictatorship because that doesn't work to maintain these values. Dictators come in and change values all the time. But if we could restrict some people from voting to protect these values, like liberals, like not allowing Greenland to vote, then we should do that, because the values take precedent over pure democracy.